and see that ego as if it's over there, it's floating in front of you, it's giving you signs of who you are. You know, you can develop that, and it's very powerful, and it will give you the ability to look at your own wounds objectively. But you're never going to reach a degree of 100% detachment. Me, who's been practicing this for many years, I still get caught up in those wounds. I still get caught up in my ego. It's just a matter of degree. That's all I'm talking about.
This is such an insanely complicated issue when I think about, okay, so if the number one problem is people aren't aware that there's a game being played, basically, you can't take things sort of at their surface, and then understanding that, as you were saying, that self-awareness is also this critical part, then there are the studies that have shown that your mind will give you a reason for something even when that reason is obviously not true. And I don't know if you heard about that study where people that have had the ability to form long-term memories damaged, so they can do short-term memories, but you could reintroduce yourself to them every 3 minutes and they'd be like, oh my God, they greet you anew each time. And the doctor put a pin in his hand and he walked in and he shook hands and it poked the person. They jerked their hand back like, why'd you do that? They leave, they come back 3 minutes later, the person does not remember meeting them at all. They stick out their hand and the person will refuse to shake it. And so they don't remember ever meeting them before. And so they'll say, why won't you shake my hand? Oh, well, I've had a long-standing rule. I don't shake the hand of people with white lab coats. And they come up with all these different excuses because the brain can't sit there in this ignorance. And so you have something that's clearly hardwired in us I have heard humans referred to as meaning-making machines, which makes a lot of sense to me. We make meaning out of something.
Right.
So if we have this hardwired propensity to come up with some sort of meaning, something somewhere, and we have the psychological immune system, which doesn't want me to feel badly about myself. So now I have an inclination to lie to myself, basically, from some deep-seated part of me that survives even damage to the ability to make long-term memories. And so when I think about the deck being stacked against people in terms of really figuring out what's actually going on inside themselves, it gets a little scary. And this is where, so for me, when I think about, okay, if all of the things that I just said are true, nested inside of all the stuff you've been talking about, the only path I see out of that is because everyone needs self-esteem. So your psychological immune system's trying to make you feel good about yourself. Got it. So you need to take conscious control of feeling good about yourself, but you need to wrap it around something anti-fragile. So that for the only answer I've come up with in my own life is to be the learner. That way, if I do something stupid, I make a mistake, whatever, I can just go, hey, that sucks and it does make me feel badly, but I only value myself for being a learner. And since recognizing how I actually am would be useful, then I'll face the truth of what this is, and then I can learn and move on.
Well, you touch on an extremely important, critical thing here, the element that I'm trying to hit at, which is your level of desire for change. So if you're trapped in these patterns and you feel a great degree of pain and your life isn't going anywhere and you're having bad relationships, bad work habits, and you say, I can't deal with this anymore, you're extremely motivated to go through the process that you just mentioned, which is after every event that occurs, you go through kind of an autopsy, right? And you analyze. You can do this on a daily basis with a journal, or you can do it on a weekly basis. What did I do there? What was the element of where I actually might have created the problem between me and another person? And I have to be reasonably rational and I have to be reasonably realistic. You're right. If we saw completely into ourselves, we would hate ourselves so thoroughly that we wouldn't get out of bed. We'd all be killing ourselves. You do need a degree of illusion. You do need a degree of self-esteem and confidence, right? And what happens is, it's kind of like an internal thermostat. And so you have people who are what I call deep narcissists, who have no kind of sense, no anchor inside of them, no real sense of self-esteem to hold on to. And when that self-esteem starts going down, 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 they have no way of dealing with it. And their only way of dealing with it is acting out in the way that narcissists act out. So we all have, if we're not a deep narcissist, we have that thermostat where things start hurting us a little bit and we bring ourselves back up for the self-esteem mechanism so we don't get too depressed and too down. And there's an element of unreality to that, but it's very valuable. And I would never, ever, ever want to burst that. You need a degree of illusion in your life. It's very important. But if you really want change, if you're really fed up, if you're not kidding yourself, if you're not going through this bullshit process, yeah, I kind of want to change my life, but you don't really mean it, then no words, no therapy will ever get you to that point. You almost have to hit bottom. You almost have to tell yourself, I can't take this anymore. And now the motivation is so deep that you're able now to begin the process of going through that kind of self-analysis, because that's the only way you're going to get out of it. It's the only way. A lot of our culture is making this worse in a way, unfortunately. I mean, there's good things in our culture now, but there are bad things.
Give me some of the bad.
Well, I think social media, for all the good that it does, makes it very hard to be self-reflective.
Interesting. I thought for sure you were going to say it just leads us to compare ourselves. Why does it make it hard to be self-reflective?
Well, it does. Well, comparing yourself is not self-reflective. When you compare yourself, your standard is always what other people are doing, right? They're on these great vacations. He's got a great job. Tom has this amazing house where I'm living in this hovel in Los Feliz, right? That's not looking at myself. That's always having the other person as the standard. It makes us so out in the world in other people, what other people are saying, what other people are doing. It makes us continually think in the social sense and not able to turn inside and look at who we are, what makes us different. We're so attuned to what's cool, to what other people are doing out there, what other people are saying, that we lose kind of an intuitive grasp of who we are, right? So the psychologist Abraham Maslow talked of impulse voices. He said that a child of 1 year old has this impulse voice that says, I like this fruit, I don't like this fruit, I'm going to throw it away, right? And then other things, these voices inside that make them their individual. This is what they like and what they hate, right? And these are very, very important as you develop later in life. This is what you love. These are the subjects that interest you. These are subjects you're not interested in. These are the people you like. These are the people you don't like. It's who you are in the deepest sense of it. It's what I call your primal inclinations. It's you at its core. And if you're so attuned to what other people are saying and doing and telling you and thinking, that voice gets drowned out by a million other voices. And you're not able to hear yourself anymore. And it's very hard to take a step back and actually look at yourself and analyze yourself. So I think that in some ways this dilemma that we're talking about is getting more and more difficult, because to be able to do what we're talking about, you have to be willing to be alone. You have to be willing to close the door in your room, write down and say, this is what's going on. This is what happened. This is what I did. This is what they did. You can't be out there in the world and do this. It's impossible to do that process, because you're going to be sucked into the social dynamic and you won't be able to think about yourself. So I think it's made things a little bit harder for people.
That's really interesting. And oh man, the human condition is utterly fascinating. It does not seem designed to make us enjoy it, or it literally seems survival is like the only consideration, and that can be obviously very difficult for people. So as people navigate the modern world, as they try to make their way through something like that, what are the tools and approaches that you recommend to people?
Well, it's kind of what the subject of, sort of what the daily laws is about. There's two things. So, the source of your power in life is your attitude towards the world. And in human nature, I kind of describe what I believe an attitude is. It's your lens, it's your way of looking at the world. Everybody's lens is different. You're not seeing things exactly as they are. You're seeing them filtered through how you look at them. Some people
This is so important.
Yeah. Some people are optimistic and adventurous. Some people are anxious and closed. And you could put two people in the same circumstances visiting the same place. The pessimistic, anxious person will find it unpleasant. People are rude. I don't like it. The adventurous, exploring type will find the circumstances very exciting. but it's the same thing. It's just you're judging it in a different way. So the lens that you want a lens that clarifies things. You want a lens that's realistic, that you're trying to see things as they are, right? It's good to be excited, but sometimes if you're too excited, too adventurous, you're going to walk right up to that tiger and they're going to eat you alive. Sometimes you have to be a little bit wary of things. You have to see your circumstances for what they are. In military terms, they call it situational awareness. You're very aware, crystal clear about who you are, about who other people are, about what the world is like. So that's the attitude that you want to craft for yourself in this world. And it's very difficult. As you've been saying very eloquently, the cards are stacked against you. A, because of how we're wired. Our brains developed 200,000 years ago in circumstances that certainly aren't the way things are now. So there's kind of a gap there between how we're wired to think and what's going on in the 21st century. And B, we're dealing with technology that's making things harder. So your goal in life is to become more realistic, to be able to step back and look at things as they are. And how do you get there is the question. So first you have to see that as your goal, and it has to be important to you. It has to be something that you want. And it's not just something that's cold and dry and scientific.
Really fast, why is that the right goal?
Why is that the right goal?
Yeah, to see, I agree with you. I just want to see how you explain it to people, why it matters to see the world the way that it actually is.
Well, okay, imagine it this way. So there's yourself. Everything begins with you, right? You're filled with all kinds of illusions about who you are, about what you're good at, what you're bad at, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. If you're able to see inside of yourself with a degree of realism, you'll be able to understand this is what I was destined to be in life. This is what I call my life's task. This is the career that fits me, that suits me. So if you're able to have that realism when you're 22 years old, you're not going to suddenly go off on this wrong career path that's going to make you miserable, make you an alcoholic by the time you're 30. You're going to have a degree of direction in life. It's incredibly liberating. It's incredibly powerful to be able to see inside of yourself and know what you were destined for and what makes you you. Other people wear masks. They smile, but their smile doesn't mean anything. There are toxic people out there. It's not everybody. I don't mean to make you paranoid. Maybe there's like 5% of the world that's truly toxic. Every single human being, I can guarantee you, has had to deal with these toxic people in a way that's painful. And you don't see them, they're very tricky. These are people who've learned to disguise themselves. You're going to get sucked into all these dramas and traumas with these people. It can make your life miserable. Imagine that you had a realistic attitude and you could see through these people. You could catch, before you get involved with them, signs of that they might be one of these types. Another thing that's incredibly liberating, the world that you live in, there's a zeitgeist, there's a spirit of the times, there are trends, there's things that are going on right now in your career, in the world at large. And we're fed with so much bullshit in the media. We have no idea what's really going on. The ability to see this is where the world is headed. This is where business will be in 2 years. This is where things are going to be. These are the trends. The power to see inside yourself, power inside to see other people, see the world. You're Superman if you can do that. If you can have a degree of that, the world is at your feet, basically. So, I don't think there's any counter argument to that, where you don't want that kind of realism. And it's not this ugly thing. It's incredibly sexy because it's incredibly powerful, right? So we've now come to the point, you and I, we agree that that's what you want. The person out there is going, yeah, I want that as well. Okay, Robert, that's fine. How do I get there? Aha. Well, you have to be patient. You have to know it's a process. You can't get ahead of yourself. You can't get ahead of your skis. It's going to take day by day by day by day. You have to build it up. You're working against your own nature. You're working against the times. So be patient, be compassionate with yourself, and learn to take these baby steps. And in the book Daily Laws, I have a lot of different ways of attacking that. The main way of attacking it is learning the ability, as we talked about earlier, to be able to detach yourself from the immediate events going on and to be able to look at yourself with a degree of dispassion and say, this is what I really did, what really happened here. So just a simple example, something kind of doesn't go the way you want it to, which will happen almost every day or every week, with your children, with your spouse, with your boss, wherever. Okay, what is your normal reaction? Every single human, including myself, blame that person. They're not caring. They're not empathetic. They're an asshole. They're narcissistic. Blah blah blah. Stop it. Stop it right now. Don't do that again. Step back and say, what did I do? Okay, if that person is toxic, why am I involved with them? There's something wrong about me. If that person got reactive and resentful and they had a bad tone of voice, something that I said, maybe there was something in me that was projecting kind of negativity. Maybe my own mood was kind of creating this atmosphere that made them react that way. Look at yourself instead of blaming other people. These are parts of the process. There are many others, but
Dude, that is so huge. People always, so I have a saying that I like that most people fucking hate, which is everything is my fault. And
I love it.
It's so useful. So, fault is a word that gives people, I don't know, emotional distress or something, so they don't like when I use that phrase. But what I like to remind myself is that if I did something different, I could get a different outcome.
Right.
And that's so powerful to me, to not, by blaming somebody else, by making it their fault, I give away all my power and there's nothing I can do about it. And now I'm sort of a victim of circumstance. But man, when you take 100% ownership and you look at your life and say, my life is an exact reflection of choices that I've made.
Yeah.
Now, if I want it to be different, then I just need only make different choices.
Completely. And one of the things that's like that is, if something went wrong, maybe, and I'm to blame, just accept it. Just accept the fact that it happened. Don't try to change it, but just say that this has happened